Be afraid. Be very afraid.
If I had to choose just one example of a director dissecting an existing movie,
No, up here.
then splicing it with his own filmmaking DNA to make a hybrid that embodies his own visions, it would have to be David Cronenberg's The Fly.
What does the disease want?
It wants to turn me into something else.
In part, this scope for transformation existed because Kurt Newman's 1958 film The Fly was an unusually faithful translation of Georges Langeland's original sci-fi horror short story, published in Playboy magazine just 1 year prior.
Although I killed my husband, I'm not a murderess. I simply carried out his last wish.
Told predominantly in flashback, it's the account of the widow of ill-fated scientist André Delambre, whose experiments with teleportation go awry. Attempting to teleport himself, André gets reconfigured with an errant housefly, accidentally trapped inside his pod. What then unfolds is a why-done-it mystery. André's brother Francois and the detective on the case unraveling the incredulous truth.
A fly-headed human? No.
There's also a race against time to catch the fly with André's human arm and head and attempt to reverse the experiment before the insect, and André's chance at salvation, gets swatted.
Gotcha, you fool!
The Fly, both short story and film, are a striking example of the era's speculative fiction. Post-World War II, the atomic age fears of scientific capability were rife. Them's giant radioactive ants led the charge for a series of supersized mutated creatures.
Born in that swirling inferno of radioactive dust were things so horrible, so terrifying, so hideous.
The Fly took things to the next evolutionary level. What if man himself were the victim? So on one hand, this is a straightforward cautionary tale of messing with nature, a little blinded by its own visual effects. Vincent Price's final moral may assert,
"Search for the truth is the most important work in the whole world and the most dangerous."
But it's all clinical and neat and ends with the nuclear family of sorts re-established. Anyone who knows David Cronenberg's films would expect something a lot messier. A large part of his work fixates on how violent emotional shifts, irrational fears and desires, give rise to physical transformations.
Look!
Sometimes shocking, some even explosive. These changes can be wrought by, even fused with, technology. As the famous Videodrome quote goes,
On with the new flesh.
so Cronenberg keeps the overreaching scientist, here called Seth Brundle, but stirs a lot more than just a fly into the mix. Unlike his predecessor André, a happily married, middle-aged, middle-class father, Seth Brundle is a nervy, antisocial outsider trying to jump-start his life.
The flesh. It should make the computer crazy.
He's not seeking some mere functional achievement. He wants something organic, even artistic.
Flesh. The poetry of the steak.
One interpretation of Brundle's transformation is as a grotesque parody of attaining fully grown manhood and maturity. He starts out as a childlike naïve,
Is this a romance we're having? Is that what it is?
developing through puberty into a sexually charged, aggressive adolescent, flexing his new alpha male credentials.
You're jealous! I've become free, I've been released, and you can't stand it.
Then morphing into a beaten down and bitter adult, before succumbing to the frailties of the aging process. The Fly is often considered the most emotionally engaging of Cronenberg's films, and that's because at its heart, it's an epic, tragic love story. The relationship between Brundle and Veronica, the investigative reporter who gets swept up in his obsession, is pulsatingly alive. It moves from playful banter to the genuinely sensual,
It's the flesh. It just makes you crazy.
to the heartbreaking.
My ear. No. I'm scared.
Brundle only puts himself through the teleporter in a drunken fit of jealousy about Veronica's ex-boyfriend.
Look at me. Does this look sick? Does this look like a sick man to you?
And though at first he feels as if he's been cleansed and reborn through the disintegration-reintegration experience, what we then see is steady, inexorable degeneration.
Artifacts of a bygone era. You're a relic.
Given its mid-80s arrival, many saw an allegory here for the brutal AIDS pandemic.
What's happening to me? Am I dying?
Cronenberg viewed it in broader terms as an accelerated stand-in for mortality, our inevitable organic decay, and for all the gross visual effects on display. And there are plenty of them. These sci-fi horror trappings somehow make this idea more palatable as a movie.
I've often said that this movie, if it were made as a straight drama, would never have gotten made because it's really quite depressing. If you tried to sell somebody on a movie about two attractive, eccentric people who fall in love, and then one of them contracts a hideous wasting disease and the other one watches as he deteriorates and then helps him commit suicide at the end, this is a tough sell for a movie.
Tough, sure. But funny how a prestigious international auteur can be highly lauded and awarded for the same subject, if situated in more familiar bourgeois trappings. The 1958 Fly was shot in colour and handsome cinema scope, so it looks a cut above most of the era's creature features. A commercial hit, its body horror storyline was still generally considered schlocky by supposedly sophisticated audiences. The black and white cash-in sequels only confirmed its standing as a frivolous cult item. Two elements likely endured. Co-star Vincent Price, who only really became the fully fledged horror icon we know today after these films, and that still chilling final scene of Andre's screaming head on the body of a fly trapped in a web with a spider bearing down. In fact, if you slow the footage down, it's even worse. Inspector Charras clearly doesn't mercy kill Andre before the spider gets him first. Cronenberg blithely ditched this most famous scene because he's as much absorbed by the intimate psychological effects on his protagonist as the physical. It's probably the most telling and sophisticated shift from the original. The 58 film's head switch renders Andre mute instantly. We never see the actual accident or transformation, and he's unseen or off-screen for lengthy periods. Cronenberg puts Brundle's stages of mutation under the microscope.
No, I'm becoming something that never existed before. I'm becoming Brundle Fly.
He has him articulate his own gradual self-eradication.
Saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it. But now the dream is over.
It's no coincidence that Brundle's equipment requires voice recognition, which in time betrays him. Even eventually buried under extensive visual effects, Jeff Goldblum's performance is astoundingly nuanced.
Baby might be all that's left of the real me. You, me, and the baby. We'll be the ultimate family.
The Oscar-winning makeup provides the blood and guts, but he and the equally impressive Geena Davis bring the heart. A reminder that Cronenberg is one of the great actor-directors, often coaxing career-best work from many of his stars.
Let's stay with us. Stay with me.
If Kurt Newman's clean-cut cautionary 1950s Fly is a body swap shocker, the remake goes beyond symbiosis to tap into deeper and darker fears living inside us, as he so often does by anatomizing the breakdown of mind and body into something other, something new, something uncanny. David Cronenberg reveals the true horror, and in his character's own words, the poetry of being human.
You could finish your father's work. You're as brilliant as he was.
It's getting worse.
I'm getting better.